Recently in the Medic and Turret update, 4 towers have received balance changes in TDS. The Medic, Turret, Assassin, and the Archer. I'll be talking about Medic stats first. The Medic has been completely reworked in this update. It is now a full-on support tower, no longer being able to attack the enemies. At level 0, the Medic now costs $500 and it can boost a single tower by 20% fire rate. It still heals by 5 HP per wave if you lose HP like before. However, base healing is useless, so it doesn't really matter. The selected tower also has a shield bubble like the Engineer, and it won't be stunned if an enemy attacks it. However, it has a cooldown of 8 seconds whenever an enemy stuns it. Level 1 allows you to boost a total of 2 towers now for $300, meaning you can just get a second medic for 200 less by just upgrading. And level 2 allows you to boost a total of 3 towers for 750, and medic is able to overheal your base HP. So for each level 2 medic place, you can overheal your base by 5 extra HP, which is pretty useless. Level 3 medic now costs 2,700, but it now unlocks the Ubercharge ability, which allows the towers you have selected to receive a 20% damage buff for 7.5 seconds. It also has a cooldown of 60 seconds, however you cannot change this ability like you can with the commander, unless you seldom replace and select the same towers again fast. This is usually not worth it unless you have spare cash in the final wave. Another thing Ubercharge does, it gives the selected towers all detections, which is honestly really good. If you don't have any towers with flying detection and you see a fallen seraph, you can just do Ubercharge your towers and they attack it. At level 4, the medic can now boost 4 towers in its range for $6,000, and the Ubercharge ability now gives a 27.5% buff and the duration is increased to 10 seconds. But it's generally not worth going for this level unless you have all your level 3 medics placed down and you don't have any more towers to buff. And finally, at max level, the medic can now boost 5 towers in its range. The Ubercharge is even better, even having a 40% buff and a 15-second duration. The shield bubble cooldown goes down to 2 seconds, so if a tower loses this bubble from an enemy stunning it, it will take 2 seconds to recover its shield, which is a lot better compared to the level 0 being 8 seconds. Anyways, the medic rework is pretty solid. I like the concept of picking what towers you want to buff, but it's just too strong at the moment. I would say that it's an S tier tower just because of the fact you can boost towers DPS by 20% fire rate and 40% damage buff for like 25% of the time, which just makes it really OP. The next star up is the turret, and really didn't get any new mechanics, however it did get some pretty good buffs. The level 0 is now $1,000 cheaper, but with a slightly slower fire rate by 0.05. This is an overall buff since the cost to DPS ratio is slightly better and it's cheaper to place down. The level 1 turret didn't get any DPS changes besides becoming overall cheaper by 750, since level 0 is a lot cheaper to upgrade despite the level 1 becoming more expensive. This is another huge buff since it's a lot cheaper. And the level 2 turret became 2,250 more expensive overall, but the damage is now increased to 20 from 15. This is still overall cost to DPS ratio buff by a decent amount, so it's pretty good now. At level 3 it became 5,250 more expensive overall, however it got the same damage buff at level 2, allowing the cost to DPS ratio to be better. At level 4 it becomes 9,250 more expensive, however the damage is also increased to 40, which is also an overall buff like the levels 2 to 3 as more efficient. Finally, at max level, it got an overall price increase of 5,500, but the damage is increased by 20. However, the fire rate is nerfed by 0.03, making the DPS go from 450 to 500. This buffs the cost to DPS ratio and makes it a higher DPS, so it's a pretty nice buff. The turret didn't get that big of a buff, but it makes it so much better tower to use, since the main issue with the turret was it was a little outclassed. However, this buff makes the turret go from B tier to A tier. The medic also makes the tower even better. Another tower that got buffed is the Assassin, and these buffs are massive. First, the level 0 is now 200 a place, costing 100 cheaper, and the fire rate is decreased from 0.75 to 0.6. The range is also increased by 0.5, and the DPS is buffed by 33%, and makes it nearly 2 times better for cost efficiency. The level 1 costs the same as before in total since it got a price increase, however the fire rate is a lot faster from 0.75 to 0.5, making it 50% better. However, the range is decreased by 0.5, but it really doesn't matter considering it's 50% better than before. The level 2 deals 2 more damage than before, and the fire rate went from 0.6 to 0.5, but it now costs 350 more. This is a pretty huge buff despite the price increases and a slight range nerf by 0.5. At level 3, the range is also slightly decreased by 0.5 and costs overall 850 more. However, it now deals 7 more damage and has a faster fire rate from 0.6 to 0.5. Finally, at max level, the damage goes from 30 to 50 with a fire rate decrease from 0.5 to 0.4 and costs 4,200 more. The knife throw also goes from 25 damage to 100 damage, which is literally 4 times better, even if the damage requirement increased from 150 to 400. This honestly might be one of the biggest buffs in TDS history. Overall, the Assassin Tower went from a D tier to probably an A tier. Assassin currently is a little too strong for an intermediate tower, but still pretty fun to use. It's really good at handling multiple enemies because of the whirlwind and knife throw. Lastly, the Archer got a nerf, but it's really small, that doesn't even matter. All that happened was level 4 costing literally 400 more. Literally nothing changed, it's still the same tower. However, I do agree that Archer should be nerfed since it's way too versatile for an event tower. However, this nerf literally does nothing. Anyways, that's about it for the balance changes. If you want more videos like this, let me know, and I'll see you later. Oh yeah, subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed.